All right, today we are interviewing Mr. David Lee. He is the curriculum coordinator for Dale County School System. Mr. Lee, we're going to go through some of these questions and see your response and your opinion on some of them. How do you assess and revise a systematically integrated curriculum, both horizontally and vertically, that engages all students in rigorous, relevant academic challenge across academic curriculums?
That's a mouthful, Mr. Hutto. For the main thing, the curriculum is driven by our state standards, our college career ready standards, so we start with the content. Our content comes from the standards. Now, how I assess it horizontally and vertically, I don't necessarily assess it, but we ask of our school improvement plans with each individual school. We always push vertical teaming and horizontal teaming, where the different grade levels and content areas collaborate with each other. So that's an expectation for all of our schools. Now, whether or not they do that 100% of the time, but they all do that at certain levels and certain percentages. And as part of our school improvement plan, we also push student engagement and Webb's depth of knowledge activity. So if we push student engagement and strategic teaching as a district initiative, and we expect those to be in each school's school improvement plan, then I know it's happening. Now, I don't go back and nitpick and make them turn in, other than our walkthroughs that we do, and then occasionally at principals' meetings. And then Webb's depth of knowledge will take care of the part about academic challenge across all disciplines. Mm-hmm. The last couple of years, we've asked principals, and like 3 years in a row, as part of the teacher's PLP, personal learning plan, they're supposed to put those activities in there so they develop lessons where they can use the rubric that Webb's provides to kind of assess the depth of knowledge level that is. So I answered it kind of quickly, but that's really kind of what we do in a broad spectrum, starting from the standards, ending with the activities.
Yeah, and I think, well, about your statement on the first question, I think you kind of answered how you are assured that the instructional objectives and curricular goals are aligned.
That's true. That's
so
true.
You've already kind of answered two questions.
Right, all hand in hand. And some of these, you'll see, some of these really kind of go together.
Right. How do you feel that you lead and motivate faculty members to adhere to prescribed state standards?
Well, as far as a local school, I probably, we try not to micromanage that much with principals, but through our principals and from what Mr. Baker sends down is our superintendent and Mr. Walker as our associate, we expect certain things to be done from the principal down. So I may not go to a principal meeting, to a faculty meeting, but we know the expectations we've given to the principals. Now, in our walkthroughs and then in support of those teachers, I will visit classrooms, and as small as our system is, we can go by and see teachers at any time if they have any questions about that. But as far as addressing individual faculties, we leave that up to principals.
Okay. How do you work with stakeholders to identify instructional and curricular needs that align with the district shared visions and then with available resources?
We have, since I'm also the supervisor that talks to counselors, I meet with them several times throughout the year, not just through assessments, but the content they have to have. We meet with principals and assistant principals routinely. So that's mainly my stakeholders. I don't necessarily have a separate advisement committee of parents for the curriculum because pretty much that's set by the state. And then Advanced Ed, I am the contact person for Advanced Ed, so annually I train every school's Advanced Ed school improvement team. So part of that's talked about at that time.
Okay. How do you monitor and assess instructional programs, activities, and materials?
Instructional coaches help me with that. In K through 8, we've got 5 instructional coaches, so we try to meet at least once a month, and in the summer we have planning times where we look at our curriculum for the year. We do a better job of that K6, to tell you the truth, because the high schools don't have that separate instructional coach. But we do meet with the content area people. In the last few years, we've had 7 through 12 committees of teachers to get together to either our strategic teaching initiative, or when we used in the Engage curriculum 3 years ago when we started that. So I can not necessarily monitor, but provide professional development for curriculum for those committees, and then there again, the principal is that first person that's in charge of that monitoring. We just give them some guidelines, and then with the walkthroughs that we have through the central office, that's another way of monitoring.
Okay. How do you use diagnostic tools to assess, identify, and apply instructional improvement?
I don't know if I actually do that as far as a diagnostic tool. As far as, well, we do look at the data. I've provided, this is my 11th year as curriculum director, so what I've tried to do is give them 3 to 5 years of longitudinal data to look at whatever the latest accountability test. We had like 10 years of the previous test of Alabama reading and math that I provided PowerPoints. The last 4 years I've provided PowerPoints for the ACT Aspire for a principal to be able to show their data without them having to put that in there. So probably if you're talking about instructional improvement, not necessarily achievement data. We've tried to use some of the Elliott tools with the Advanced Ed, which is going to be the next, which really measure student engagement. But there again, it goes back to routine walkthroughs to give them feedback on what's going on in the actual classroom.
The rest of these are kind of opinion based, or just how you feel about your position. What do you think is the greatest difficulty about your day-to-day job?
We're a small school system, but being K-12 curriculum, it would be much easier if I was just elementary K-6 or just high school 7-12. We're small enough that I feel like sometimes I hit the high points rather than if it was separate. Other systems separated. That's one thing. And probably right now is we're balancing several different types of curriculum. We may have, we've got our elementary schools right now are 50-50. I've got one school that uses the Engage ELA curriculum. I have another schools that use Reading Street Scott Sforzman. So our pacing guides are different. The grading's different. And the only reason we've not made them change is because we know we're in a state of transition with our new superintendent. Within 2 years, we're going to have brand new standards, which will have to have a new curriculum. Our assessment's changing, so we're I hate to say we're in a mess. We're not necessarily in a mess, but it's a transition. It's a transition. So that's difficult. And so we've not gone back and dictated a lot of things. It's not the best
just kind of
situation.
Sitting back and waiting to see what comes.
It's not the best situation. No, we hope within 2 years we could say everybody's using this, and these are our guidelines, and this is the new assessment. So right now it's difficult to do that.
I think you kind of answered number 8 about what are the factors that interfere with achieving your goals. And we talked earlier about knowledge-centered, learning-centered, and society-centered curriculum. I guess characterizing your curriculum, if you have to separate it K-12, it would vary greatly.
Right. Right, and what you and I were talking about off camera a minute ago, Knowledge Center I look at that's the content. And we get caught up in this A to Z. I have to learn all this content. It's the verbiage behind my academic area. Learner-centered should be more of the student engagement, that I'm not drill and kill. You don't lecture all day. We need to be doing student engagement all the way through. For at least 7 or 8 years, we have really pushed student engagement in 7 through 12 and trying to get away from the old model, but it's a day-to-day process to make sure some of those teachers will do that. I think society-centered is probably listening to your business leaders and workforce development and making sure we listen to what do these businesses need out of our graduates. We know as a career tech teacher, we know that is the area that most of our kids could flourish in if we really had that down pat with a better options for career technical education. not just the typical things we've done the last 20 or 30 years. So we're a combination, and we're working on the society-centered, but in a small system. I think we do a good job with the resources we have. I really do.
All right. I appreciate it. I think that you've covered all the questions that I had on my list. So I appreciate your time today, and that will conclude our interview.
Give him an A.